What's up, guys? Welcome into another edition of Bogey Free. Tonight we are coming at you with some AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am action. No Evan tonight, but you can find me on Twitter at MattJonesTFR, and Anthony's joining us. You can find him on Twitter at Amixta, Twitch, same thing, I believe. What's going on, man? How we doing?
Doing all right. Nothing new. I mean, didn't get to do my didn't do my golf stream today because I had to do some stuff after work. So this is the first time the people will hear my golf takes. So there you go. Saving for you.
Saved all the good stuff for Bogey Free. I love it.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, make sure you are subscribed, iTunes, YouTube, whatever you, however you consume content. We're on Spotify too. And make sure you go over to Anthony's Twitch as well, because he's doing a lot of good, cool streams and different things, not just golf related. I am a one-trick pony. Anthony is not. So make sure you head on over there and check out everything that he's up to. Before we jump into this week, we do have a listener league to wrap up from last week. Ice Hoya, which I believe is Mike Sussman, took down the listener league this week by a pretty heavy margin, a little bit over 30 points. And obviously he had Ricky. Ricky was pretty high owned in the listener league. He was up at 30%.
Rightfully so.
So he got over the hump with some other good plays there too. He had Cam Smith and Benny on in the top 20, and then obviously he went 6 of 6. So that helps every time you get a 6 of 6 through in a 50-man tournament like this. I was almost DFL. Could not have made any worse GPP lineups this past week. I went 15-2 in cash and hit all the double ups, and my GPP lineups, all of them had some combination of like Finau and List or Dahmen and Neiman or Neiman and whatever, and just 3 and 4 of 6s all over the place, chasing way too much upside. So got to get back to some cut equity this week. How was your week overall?
I mean, it was really good on my main team. Like I got a 6 of 6, so that cashed me. But terrible in showdown. Like when you talk about being DFL, like I literally, I forget how many people the contest was, but it was like that plus one was like -1 was my finishing position. Like yeah. it was really bad.
If you get on the wrong side of like a guy, carding a couple eagles on showdown, you're just drawing dead immediately. That's the only like rough part. Like you can target the right people, but I think it was a couple weeks ago, Adam Scott had 2 eagles in the 3rd round or whatever it was. And it's just like, if you don't have them, like the scoring is such that you're never going to catch up. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Then I got kicked in the dick on the Super Bowl. So
I hit my blue Gatorade prop, so that's all that matters.
Oh yeah, fire! That's pure fire.
That's all that matters. Me and my buddies put some money together for that, so we were popping champagne.
You should have popped blue Gatorade.
So all right, let's jump into this week. It's I want to say it's the last like annoying 3-course bullshit that we have to deal with. There's 3 courses. We have Pebble Beach, which is it kind of bounces back and forth. It typically can play as the hardest. It's not usually the easiest of the 3. The field will play it twice, once before the Saturday cut, and then everybody plays it who makes the cut on the final round. We also have Monterey Peninsula and Spyglass. So both of the other 2 courses, Monterey is a par 71 and Spyglass is a par 72, but even Monterey with the par 71 still has 4 par 5s. So something to keep in mind, it's not a traditional par 71, which is good for us because that means an extra scoring opportunity. If you want to see how the courses have played over the last few years, they've really shuffled around quite a bit. But for the past 5 years, I put it in the preview article over on RotoViz, so you can go over there and like sort it by year to see what the order was each year, but it really bounces around quite a bit, really depending on the weather. So that's sort of the general breakdown of the courses. Anthony, what did you find was important stats wise? What kind of golf are we looking for here?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of this probably has to be because it's a pro-am and you're just getting like a lot of garbage, but it's just like a lot of total strokes gain stuff for me. Like stroke, like I changed the way. I'm mad I didn't get to a show this week because I changed the way that I did my data input. So I took advantage of the time machine on Fantasy National,
Mhm.
and so now I'm using like two different sets of data as inputs. I'm using like year N-1 data and like year of tournament data leading into the tournament. So use basically everything. You know, if it's, let's say it's like the 2017 AT&T, like I'm using all the stats that the guys had in 2017 prior to that tournament, and then you know the 2016 stats. So like literally like the to make the cut, it's like even though it's 3-run cut, most important thing was current year total strokes gained rank, and then like the next two most important stats are like year N-1 DraftKings points and year N-1 strokes gained total. Like it's like all total strokes gained stuff everywhere. Like current year birdie or better is important, and birdies gained from the previous season. Like those are all, it's like all very basic level stuff, and I think a lot of that just has to do with the fact that like at these events you just need to get good golfers because the fields usually aren't that good. So like the difference between the guys at the top and the guys like in the middle or at the bottom, at least in my opinion, is like a lot wider than at like a normal event.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. As far as like sort of breaking down the more traditional, just like straight up distance versus accuracy versus greens and regulation versus, I guess, like strokes gained around the green is a decent proxy for short game. It's really just a second shot course, like from a golf perspective, or a second shot tournament at all three of these courses. Like there's a huge drop off from the guys who are in the top 5 of greens hit versus the guys who are, you know, in 30th or 50th in greens hit. As far as distance goes, there's a slight advantage. You can, not to plug every article that I write, but if you tomorrow the article will post with the ownership projections and everything, and I broke down what the model is saying, the model that I made this week, and basically, if you go from first to dead last in driving accuracy, your chance at scoring in the top 15 of DraftKings points goes from 22.9 to 22.5. So like there's literally no effect if you're hitting fairways or not. Greens regulation is a huge drop off. From first to 50th goes from like a 45% chance to like a 15% chance. So huge emphasis on second shots. If you're missing greens, you need to get up and down. So easy game, you know, just find the guys who hit all the greens and you'll be fine. Right? Easy enough.
Sure.
So let's head over to the chalk section for now. So you had mentioned it before we started the show, and we'll definitely talk about, you know, DJ and everybody else. But from the first run of my ownership projections, which again changed throughout the week based on, you know, buzz and, you know, how I modify and monitor the you know, like where I think people are going to go. But Jason Day popped in a pretty big way, as did Tony Finau on the first run. So why don't you tell me, what are your thoughts on those two guys? Are you willing to eat the chalk with either of them, or are you feel pretty good about fading them?
I mean, again, I think like pure golfer talent has to kind of matter to you.
Mm-hmm.
So like I don't want to say like I couldn't suggest like a fade. Like they both rate out relatively highly for me, although I am I would say significantly higher on day. So I would say I prefer day here than I do Finau. He comes in with better form. He has better course history. Statistically, they're similar fits. Like they're both really good golfers. So it's they have like the highest probabilities for me to make the cut, finish in the top 25, finish in the top 10. And speaking of that, by the way, like it is important. I mean, it's not really going to affect who you select, but you have to be in the top 60 to make the cut. Like the guys
Right.
that finish between 60 and 70, they get an MDF. So
Yeah, because these fucking rounds take like 6.5 hours because you
forever.
have Larry the Cable Guy like hacking it all over the place.
So if your PHR all of a sudden is like not what you thought it was going to be, that's why. So I think I prefer day. I mean, I'm gonna continue to fade Chalk Finau. I love Finau. You mean you love Finau? I shouldn't say I love Finau. You love Finau, but I think if I'm gonna eat the chalk with one of these guys, I prefer day just because of the better like overall stuff. I mean, day has really smashed here: 2, 5, 11, 4, miscut, and 6. Finau's only played here once, so it's like a little different, and he's coming off a miscut, which I usually don't love. So I would prefer day.
Yeah, and as far as day goes, I looked at it. He's carded out of the last 27 rounds he's played here because he did miss that one cut. 15 of those rounds have been in the 60s, and he's averaging over 86 DraftKings points in his 7 starts here. So it's very clear that he can get around at this course. Like that's not really an issue. He has good form, like you mentioned. So I'm definitely willing to eat some of the chalk with him. As far as Finau goes, it is interesting. Like he was just such garbage with his putter last week. Like he averaged 31 putts per round. Like that's never going to get you anywhere in any tournament, no matter. I mean, he didn't strike it particularly well either, but even so, like you just give yourself no shot if you have 31 putts around. That's like amateur round. You know what I mean? Like it's just awful. Like there's no way around it.
I think that course might just have his number though. I mean, 4 straight missed cuts, like not an accident, I feel like.
Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting to see if that continues. But he had pretty good form coming into that, and he didn't really drop off as far as his ball striking. Like he's sort of been hovering around 70% greens in regulation for his last few starts. So I'm not really, I don't know, I'm not that concerned about it. But if he's going to be popular, then like I get it. Not maybe matching the field or maybe being a little underweight makes sense. If you're worried about it, but I don't really. I don't know. I really love a different guy in this range too this week, so we'll talk about that in a bit. But I wouldn't fault anybody for going like pretty heavily in on day or Finau, to be totally honest. All right, so let's jump down to the next range. This range in general, sort of from like 8K to 9,400, it really has quite a few options that are projecting out to be like reasonably owned. So this was a little bit hard for me to pick 2 guys up here, but the first guy we'll talk about is Jordan Spieth. For obvious reasons, this is the first time that he's been out, like starting a tournament and been outside of the top 20 in the world golf rankings since 2013, which is pretty insane to think about.
Yes.
So I don't know, what are we doing with him? Like he came out pretty strong the last time we saw him on the easier course, right? And didn't really do a heck of a lot after that. So are we interested in him at all? I do think his ownership probably dips down a little bit from the first run of my projections because everybody's just talking about him. But what do you think on Spieth?
He's fine, but like again, like it's kind of similar to Finau. Like I just would much rather play him with other people not playing. Okay. Yeah. He's played really well here. I mean, he won here 2 years ago, so I feel like that's gonna kind of keep people on him. And And yeah, like I just don't. I want to see Spieth do some good golf things. I want to like I need either him to be like in better form or like not be as popular for me
Yeah.
to play him. Like my kind of approach for this tournament is like I'm just gonna fade pretty much anyone. Like the like outside of Day, I might not play like another guy that's gonna be in like one of the most projected owned because
Right.
I just don't think that the tournament calls for it. Like I'd rather just this is like a week to get crazy in my opinion and play like the 3% owned guys and
Yeah.
just and let it ride.
Especially when you're talking about like pretty much anybody from say like 7,500 and up, like you could probably figure out a story to tell yourself to, pivot off and find a lower owned option. So I'm not mad at that at all. The other guy up here that seems like he could get a little popular, he's been talked up quite a bit, is Ches Reavie. Obviously, he's played well or finished well recently, I should say, because I'm not entirely sold on how he's playing right now. His ball striking has been on the way down. He's been averaging 27 putts per round over the last couple of times we've seen him, and he's really had to rely on his short game, which typically isn't something that I want to rely on. And he's, for those of you who pay attention to this kind of thing, like he's been all over the map as far as his starts here. So what are your thoughts on Ches? I feel pretty comfortable with a pretty much zero exposure to him this week, given the options around him.
Yeah, I mean, I will play zero Ches with 100% comfort. Like
Perfect.
The results here are mixed, like you said. He's finished well, like you said, but like the overall numbers still aren't that great. Like,
right.
I just don't. I'm not quite buying it yet. Like, I played $8,800 Billy Ho last week in a bigger field. I'm not playing like 9K Ches Reavie.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna do it. Like the stats for him this year are just so much different than they are last year, and last year way bigger sample. Like I have a really hard time buying right now, and he's still only 32nd in bogey avoidance, and you bogey in a pro-am, and you're going to be in rough shape. So I will pass.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and I don't know. I just can't get there. Like I get it. Last year, I think this time was when he sort of went, when he went on that little run. But he was hitting a lot more greens. Like I mean, obviously you have to have some sort of a hot putter to play well. But last year he went runner up here and the week before, and he's in the top 5 his last couple times. But there's not a hell of a lot of similarities between like doing well at TPC Scottsdale and doing well here necessarily, like
right.
It's a different kind of environment. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. I'm definitely comfortable avoiding him quite a bit. When we dip down a little bit further, let's go with Henley at 7,600, who's getting a little bit of buzz. And Trey Mullinax is also being talked up a little bit, I think, for some recent form. So you have any love for either of those guys?
It's a no for me, dog. I mean, I feel really comfortable. Again, like I'm fading the chalk. I don't really get the Henley thing because, again, like the current form and the course history really aren't great. Especially when you just consider like number of events played and stuff like that. Like that's like something that I think is kind of important for me. Like I want guys that have been playing golf. Like I don't like taking these guys off like long layoffs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really into that. And Mullinax has been okay lately. Like I mean he's been better. Okay, he's played pretty well. But like in terms of like a course fit, he's the nut low. Like he doesn't fit. He doesn't fit any of the stats that we want. And for that reason, I will pass.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Like obviously, Mullinax is a guy who can hit at 315 and not really have to try to do that. This is not a bomber's track. I don't think it's a particular advantage to be, to go driver all the time and just try to bomb and gouge at Pebble, at least with this setup. Maybe at the US Open, if they lengthen it a little bit, that's a different conversation. But yeah, for right now, I'm not feeling it. And then your boy, Brian Gay, below 7,000 is getting a little love here.
Yeah.
Going back to the well.
No, I mean, these cheap guys, Jones, I use them and I use them up and I spit them out. Like, I'm just not.
I get it.
I play them and then they're popular and then I fade them. And that's how I roll. So no Gay for me.
Yeah, I got it. All right, fine. All right, cool. So before we hop into our GPP pivots and our cash locks, I want to remind you guys you can get into the Listener League this week. It's still up at 50 entrants, $5 to get in, pays the top 3. The link will definitely be in the iTunes description, so make sure you head over there. And obviously, Anthony and I will tweet it out at some point probably, but honestly, you guys have been doing such a good job of filling it. We haven't really had to do much. So
been great.
Just make sure you keep filling it. And hopefully around the players, maybe we'll bump it up to 75 or so and get, a little bit of a bigger payout. But yeah, make sure you hop in and get some more 6-6s. We only had I think 2 guys get a 6-6 last week. So make sure you're building better lineups than me and Amico. All right.
I would have had a 6-6. That's on me. I'm a friggin' loser.
All right. So let's take a look up above 9,500. We spoke about Day and Finau already, but we have DJ, we have Fleet God, we have Kuchar, we have Cantlay, we have Phil. What are we doing up here?
I mean, I will be 100,000 million% Dustin Johnson this weekend. Like, the fact that he's not one of the, at least, it's early in the week. I know you always say that. But the fact that he is not projected to be the chalk is abhorrent to me. Especially with the 3-round cut. Like, the sting of missing a cut is not going to be as bad. And you can take a few more shots. Like, I know the travel. I know that is a thing, but I mean, has the guy never traveled before? You know what I mean? Like, he's been top 5 at this event for the last 5 years. He's coming off a win in the European Tour, and he's playing really good golf. Like, I'm all in on DJ. I will not be talked off this.
That's fine. You're allowed.
Not that I think you would try to talk me off. I'm just saying in general.
No, and I think just to be fair, as far as like the ownership consideration goes, I honestly think that it probably flattens out a little bit more than I have it right now, and there's a chance that he ends up, pushing closer to 20%, which it wouldn't shock me. But I honestly don't see him just like running away and becoming like 32% or something crazy as of right now. So take that for what it's worth. Again, like, things change as like more content comes out from everybody, and I get a little bit of a better feel. Obviously, I change these projections all the way up until Wednesday, usually around 8 or 9 at night, is like the last run of the projections. So can't really argue with you on an informed DJ, but Fleet God, like, it's just it's going to be 100% Tommy for me this week. It pains me because that means I won't have as much Finau as I usually do, but Fleetwood, yeah, like Fleetwood is, as far as like recent form goes in my model, he's at the very top of my my model for a chance at a top 15 DraftKings performance above everybody else. So I'm just gonna roll with that. I'll probably have some Cantlay, but I think I'm gonna try to be pretty concentrated up here and really go heavy on guys and see where else I can and spread out some exposure because I have less strong feelings about some of the guys in the lower tier. So,
Oh yeah, I'm with you on that. I think
um,
it's for me it's DJ, Fleetwood Mac, and I might sprinkle in a little Phil, but he's in such bad form. That's the only thing. Like I'm not
also
sure if he still has it.
also if you're betting like Fleetwood plus 185 against DJ is like a very tasty odds.
Oh man,
Just for the record.
I don't fucks with DJ.
I'm just saying, that seems like the JT Rom bet of last week where like I got JT at plus 150 for some reason against Rom. Like I feel like if you can find like those top tier, like top echelon guys at plus odds, like it should just be an auto bet. But that's probably a conversation for another day. I'm just saying it's definitely something that I've been toying around with and has paid off pretty well so far this year. So take that for what it's worth. So let's jump down below 9,500 down to about 8K. Like I said before, there's not really a ton of guys that are going to be like super low owned in this range. But I think we can pretty safely assume that Spieth and Reeve as of right now are going to be the top two owned guys. So who are you liking outside of those two guys?
I like Cameron Champ.
Uh-oh.
We don't. Oh no, we don't. You disagree, or you're just surprised?
No, I want to. I'll listen.
Okay.
First time, long time. I'll hang up and listen. All right.
Well, I mean, his like stat projection is a little weird just because he hasn't played. You know, he obviously hasn't played as much golf as a lot of these guys. So I just looked at like last 50 rounds compared to the field, and then I prorated it to like the tour size versus the field size. And the guy scores a lot of birdies. He can score. He can score DraftKings points. He's kind of like he's like your ideal golfer in that sense, where like even if he doesn't crush it in like the total strokes gained department, he's gonna find his way into like a good DraftKings lineup because he can get birdies. So from that perspective, I really like him. He does fit statistically using like the adjusted statistics. The only issue for me, or the biggest issue for me, is that he's never played here before. So I do always worry about guys on new courses, and he's missed 2 of his last 3 cuts. But I just feel like the early form in the very beginning part of the year in some of those weaker fields, he did really well. And I feel like this is like a kind of a similar spot at like a Pro-Am where he can kind of just let it rip and find some birds.
Right. I think that makes sense. I get it. I'm not quite as confident in him, but I can see it. As far as the rest of this range goes, it's worth noting. I don't know if DraftKings like updated already, but Kokrak withdrew just because he's been just fucking hot fire lately, and he just needs a week off. He needs to give the sweet spot in his irons a couple days off. So he deserves it, but made me a couple bucks, so I'm happy for him. All
right, tell us how much you love Sung Jae Im this week.
Oh my god, all the Sung Jae Im. Like he's 90th percentile in my model, in like the blended model that I have. It's great.
I knew it.
However, he is not the top guy in this range. Can I interest you in one Shane Lowry?
I thought about it. I'm willing to listen.
All right. So one at Abu Dhabi a couple weeks ago, 12th place in Dubai, right? He's hitting over 70% of his greens in regulation over that time. He's had 5 rounds of his last 8 in the 60s, and he plays well here. I debuted a new stat in the RotoViz preview article in the course history cheat sheet that I put out this week. I call it SOFA. It's scoring over field average. Okay. And Lowry at this event has a SOFA of almost 15 DraftKings points. So consistently outscores the field, made all 4 cuts here since 2015. So yeah, I'm gonna roll with some Shane Lowry. I think he'll be popular too. Like he might come in as maybe the third or fourth most popular guy in this range behind Reeve and Spieth, and I could see like a Snedeker gaining some steam as the week goes on or something like that. But Lowry is like my guy. Like can't miss. 8,800 is too cheap for his recent form. So I'll definitely have a bit of him. And I think I'll probably have a little bit of a sprinkle of Brandon Grace just because he played so well last week too. I think he could stay hot and hit some more greens. He really pushed Fowler and had the lead despite being, I think, 5 strokes back to start the day on Sunday before Fowler ended up winning. So, and he was really the only guy that went low on Sunday. So Grace is in really great form. So like Grace, a lot of Lowry, a bunch of Eam, and maybe some RCB, and call it a day in this range for me. Maybe some Adam Scott too.
I like a little Patrick Reed.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I never play Patrick Reed. I just can't do it.
Well, you probably don't like him like everyone else on tour, so.
Right. It's the worst. He makes it very difficult to root for him, that's for sure. But I get it. Like that dude, when he gets focused, like he can play anywhere. Like you were talking before about like just finding, like talented golfers. Like he's just a supremely talented guy when he's dialed in. Like there's not a lot bad about his game that you can say about him,
Gonna have to figure out who his partner is for this thing. See how focused he's gonna be.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is very true. I guess we'll see. All right, let's jump down to the next range, sort of like the 8K to 7K range. Why don't you give me a couple of your favorites here?
I'm not positive favorite is the word.
Okay. Ones that you tolerate?
Just because I think the range is a little iffy. But Scott Piercy, I'm willing to go back to the Scott Piercy well.
Okay.
Projects decently here in terms of a cut and like a top 25, probably not like a top 10 guy. But, I'm going to keep banging the drum in terms of his current form. The guy is, professional cut maker at this point. Bunch of like, a few top 20, stuff like that. Was top 20 here last year. Like, I'm not infatuated with Piercy, but again, he's like another one that maybe he's not scoring a ton, but like he's gonna kind of keep you in it. He's gonna maybe make the cut in the 3-hole round. Like I feel like for 7,800, he's like very safe.
Yeah, and
he's like a nice guy to pair with some of these other, expensive dudes. And then, maybe you play, like someone with basically a lot of risk, lower price in your lineup to like round it out.
I get it. I like it.
And Chesson Hadley, I will consider this week as well. Again,
such a sucker for him, man.
Oh, good. I'm happy to hear that.
It has not worked out that well for me, though.
He's like another guy that can score like that. He's like cheaper Cam Champ that's like less sexy. Like you can score if he finished inside like the top 25 of DraftKings scoring. Like it wouldn't surprise me at all. He grades out like pretty well there.
Yeah. Sure.
And like some of his peripheral stuff is pretty good. Good course history, not great form, but again, like he's going to be like a low-owned GPP play. Like if he was ripping form, he probably wouldn't be.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree.
And top 10s here in his career.
Yeah, there you go. As far as other guys that I'm interested in, just like quickly going through, Michael Thompson popped really pretty significantly in the model that I made, as well as one Ryan Palmer.
Ooh.
I'm trying to figure out exactly what I'm going to do with those two guys. I may end up just really like going like legit like 50% on one and 50% on the other, and just build like a similar core around them because I don't really know which one I like the best. Corey Connors also popped quite a bit. So maybe I can rotate like two of those three in a bunch of different lineups and have some salary left over to pay up for some of the guys that I like. So that's kind of where I'm at right now in this range. I'm not opposed to like maybe throwing in a JJ Spawn, or I don't know. I'll definitely have, like you said, some Hadley, but that's kind of where I'm limiting it to. Maybe Pat Perez, like he plays well on these types of tracks historically, even though he might not be in like the greatest form. But
I have a couple names I want to throw at you.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, you mentioned Spawn, who I perfectly kind of agree with.
Yeah.
But what do you think about going back to Joel Dahman well after he just burnt 50% of the field last week,
including me. This is when I need to like really get over my shit and like decide what the problem was. But I think I was probably a little too optimistic on him after the Farmers because of his finish, but like he didn't really hit the ball that well. Like he only hit 63% of the greens. Like it wasn't some amazing ball striking performance, and because I'm a sucker for him as well, like I do less digging to get into guys that to roster guys that I really like typically root for. And I was just kind of like, all right, cool. Like he's made a bunch of cuts in a row and had a top 10 finish. Like just keep rolling with him. But he hit the same amount of greens last week and he putted like shit, and it caught up to him. Like there's no way around it, right? Like it was just awful. 31 putts around, couldn't get up and down to save his life. Only saved par 50% of the time when he missed greens. And you're not gonna play well. You're not gonna score well when you're doing shit like that. So,
him and Gooch are the two guys I'm like thinking about, like just running it back with.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like Gooch had like kind of gave it a run there last week, didn't he? He just had a couple.
He missed the cup, but he heated up late. Yeah.
Like he just couldn't really string birdies together. He was just kind of all over the place. Only hit like 60% of his greens too. So I think I'm gonna let if people beat me with either of those guys, I think I'm just gonna let it happen. Okay. I feel much more confident about like guys like Connor and Palmer and Thompson than I do about those two. So I'm gonna stick to my conviction there.
Okay.
All right. Why don't you give me one or two like gross under 7,000 guys, and we'll hit some cash locks and get out of here.
The sub 7K is gross, but this is a name I think you'll like, Hank Laboida.
Nice.
Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah.
Perfect. Again, like a lot of the guys in this range, I'm using like a weird stat filter because they don't have like 2018 stats or anything. But again, like guy can score, guy can create DraftKings points. If you just look at like how he rates versus the field last 50 rounds, he actually does meet like some cutoffs to finish like into the top 25 in DraftKings scoring. And he's like 50-50 to make the cut, which again, like for 6,500, like if I get 4 rounds out of him, the fact that he kind of profiles as a scorer, I think that's really good. So he's probably like the one guy I like the most down here. And then if I had to pick one other guy, gracious, it's so gross. Maybe like Cam Davis.
All right, I like him.
Yeah,
it could work.
Could always go Sabatini cut making. I don't know. It's just not great down here.
Yeah, you're not interested in Ho-Sung Choi.
No, I'm not.
The follow through king.
No,
I can't wait for people to just be annoyed about him like being in the field this week. I haven't seen a lot of it yet, but I feel like it's coming at some point.
How would they be annoyed? I don't follow golf as tightly as you can tell.
So Ho-Sung Choi, you've definitely seen him. Like, he's the guy who, like, will hit the ball and like twist and contort his body with like these weird follow throughs, and like if he needs it to go left, like he'll lean all the way to the left and shit like that. Like I'll tweet something out. You've definitely seen it.
Nice.
So I'm sure people are just gonna be pissed that he's playing this week because, you know, their favorite web.com guy didn't get a sponsor's exemption this week, but like really just like relax. It's not that big of a deal.
It's the friggin' AT&T Classic. It's not the
it's not the Masters. Like, get over it. So I like this is another kid. Like, I try not to really go overboard, but like I really think that Sangmoon Bae is not far. He's not that close yet, but he's not far from like getting back to what we like knew of him like a couple of years ago. So for those of you that don't know sort of his story, he had to do like his compulsory like military service. So he was basically out of golf and hardly golf for a couple of years, came back last year and really kind of struggled. Like, he had a few, like he played well on the web, and I think won at least one event on the web last year, but was in and out with like sponsors exemptions and stuff. Missed a ton of cuts and then would just like pop up randomly. He played really well at the Farmers a few weeks ago, and just kind of blew up on Sunday, but I think that he's not that far. So at 6,900, like getting three rounds from him for sure with his birdie upside, I think is something that we should be interested in like a GPP, maybe throw him in a lineup or something. Outside of that, like that's more of a gut call. Like maybe some James Hahn would make sense. Carlos Ortiz is up there too in my model. I mean, Ernie Els popped a little bit, but I think that's more for like my career stats that I throw in there, not like terribly recent form. So I think I'm pretty good there. Like, I'm going to go pretty balanced. I'm going to try to stay in the 7K as my lowest and shoot for the moon with some of these guys in the 8K range.
All right. I'm not going to play him, but I just want to shout out Max Homa for the swag Dodgers jersey on Sunday. I don't know how much you watched.
Yeah.
But I didn't even know that I didn't even know you could do that. That's how.
Yeah, it's great.
Like, that's how rare I feel like that kind of. I was like, oh, I would have assumed there was some kind of violation here to wear like not anything but a polo or something that says Nike on it at a golf outing. So respect to him. And I am going like pretty heavy stars and scrubs this week. Like I want DJ. I want one of the other top studs. And then I'm just going to play whack-a-mole with these lower guys and try to get it right.
Yeah, Holmes not a bad call. Like he's been hitting it well. Just he can't get a putt to drop to save his life. But once that happens, he'll be in there. I think he's a pretty talented kid, and he has a good Twitter game. So give him a follow.
Well, that's what
yeah, he's pretty funny. All right, let's hit some cash locks, and then I gotta finish these articles.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm obviously going DJ as per what I said before, and I will go Cam Champ.
Wow. I'm impressed. That's conviction right there. I like it. I'm not as confident, but I like your moxie with the champ call. Speaking of which, last week, like I was so far off on Byung-Hun An's ownership, and it almost turned into like one of the best calls that I've ever made on the show. And then he just decided to shoot like 77.
It was Sunday. So bad on Sunday.
It was so painful, man. I was watching and I'm like JT. I always put like those two guys, I star them in the PGA app just to make sure I track it. And I was like, JT in third place right now. Like Benny on in sixth. Like I'm just smashing right now. Like what a world that we're living in. And then he finished T20. Like it wasn't the worst finish, but God, man, that was such a painful round on Sunday to watch.
I know.
But
Keegan, by the way, Keegan,
loser.
Keegan lock. It was lit.
Loser. He's the worst. All right. So my two cash locks are going to be Fleet God at 10-3 and Shane Lowry at 8,800. Like easy money. Two of the top three guys in my model this week, and one of them's pretty cheap. So I feel pretty good with this. I think it's going to be a good week in cash, and I think it's going to be a good week, hopefully, in GPPs. We can find some upside with some of these cheaper guys that we were talking about.
Nice. For the record, I will probably only be playing tournaments this week. I don't like these kind of tournaments for cash. I know you do because you're just a cash goat, but I can't do it.
It's the best. Like oh man, I wish I would have pulled it up. I can't go through all my head-to-heads now and find it, but I played somebody who had like legit two guys like under 6,300 in their lineup just to like fit in guys at the top. And I'm like, what are you doing in cash? Like what's happening that you think that like you give up all of your cut equity with your bottom two salary guys for what? So that you can fit in like Ram and JT? Like it doesn't equal out. A missed cut doesn't even out with having two like top end guys. It doesn't make any sense to me. It was really funny though. All right, so I guess that's gonna do it. Like I said, get ready for long rounds this week. A lot of people like shit on this week because of all the craziness, but it is somewhat interesting and fun to see like, you know, some celebrities knock it around a little bit. The celebrity feels a little weak this year, but
is Romo playing?
Yes.
All right,
Saw him. I think Rogers is in there. I know how you feel about him. So,
well, he will obviously shoot like a 70, but the guy that he golfs with will shoot like an 80.
Oh man! Between that,
talk about how good he is at golf.
Between that and the Edelman takes, I couldn't be happier today when I woke up to your Edelman take this morning.
My take is right on Edelman. If you do not,
I fully agree.
You believe that Edelman an elite receiver, just find me.
Yeah,
I will prove you wrong with data. Thank you.
Yep, I agree. I hear you. All right, that's gonna do it. Before we go too far off the rails. We'll talk to you guys soon. Make sure you hop in the listener league and good luck this week. See ya.
Peace.